What's up, guys? This is Keith Kelfis with the Untrapped Podcast. We got my boy Dan Platta all the way in from Minnesota, the home service CFO. This guy changed and impacted my life in so many ways, and we're going to get into tons of stuff. He's going to talk about scaling your business. You're going to want to take notes because this basically free content on the Untrapped Podcast and on this video, if you're watching the video, is stuff. The last time he was here, people emailed me saying, bro, I watched it, and I'll put a link in the description below and in the show notes to the 12 steps that he did. But people were literally taking notes. When Dan comes on the show, he's just dropping what we call knowledge bombs, pure value. And I want to say, who is this guy if you don't know him? We went to his house in Minnesota. My wife and I, we brought a couple of our dogs. We were traveling around and going to the Dirt Monkey's house. So we stopped at Dan's because his agency does our bookkeeping. And I met Dan through a series of people in our industry. He's a great guy, but my dog left a dog toy in his backyard. And I'm saying this again. We left, and we're like, oh, shoot, Miko left his dog toy in Dan's backyard. Now we're already passing through Chicago. And I texted him, you texted me. I'm like, dude, don't worry. It's just a dog toy. Bro, a week later, I look in the mail, and the dog toy showed up in the mail. You mailed my dog toy.
Dude, I mean, I got I don't have any dogs, but I have 3 kids, and if food gets spilled around the table, they'll eat it off the floor, so they're basically like a dog. And, man, if a toy is missing, I mean, we got thousands of toys, but if one of them's missing, I'm going to know about it, right? I respect the toy. You gotta respect the toy. You gotta respect the dog. Dog needs his toy. The dog had a toy. This is a Michigan dog. It was in Minnesota.
Yeah.
The only toy that comes with a dog to Minnesota is a meaningful toy. It wasn't just any toy. It was the travel toy. Like, that dog clearly appreciated that specific toy. You can't take a toy away from a dog like that. Had to get back home.
Dude, you went to the mill and you mailed all the way back. No, what I'm talking about is integrity here. So, dude, let's get into it. You brought a notebook. You put together notes for this and things that you've wanted to talk about since last time you were here on the show.
I'm a nerd, man. I've been saving them up for like a year and a half. Just like taking my notes. Just got to go back and talk some nerdy stuff.
Dan and his he's serial entrepreneur. He's either started from the bottom and grown several multiple 6 and several 7-figure businesses. He's a finance genius, and he helped me take my QuickBooks and my understanding of finances in my business and all the little tiny questions I had that were making me feel confused as far as the money aspect of, how much is coming in and how much is going out, and how much is in your bank relatively, but Dan helped me dial it in, and a lot of other people on a whole new level. So sit back, buckle up your seatbelts, or if you're out working, listen to this thoroughly. I'm going to let you take the floor. What's up, Dan?
Man, it's so good to be back. It's just good to be sitting in here, hanging out. I'm always like, I'll call them toys. They're not toys. You have all these assets. That's me being a finance person. You got all these assets to do this sort of thing. It just blows my mind, man. You kill it at this.
The so cameras cool. And the lights. And
just being in this room. When I do my little home service happy hour podcast, I'm just like at my little laptop with the, what I deem as a nice, like microphone that I bought from Amazon and whatever camera I got, and I just send it, and I come in here, I'm just like, man, I'm just such an amateur on my podcast. Keith just takes it to another level.
I had a dream of making this podcast, what it is now, what it's growing into, and it soon be. I mean, there's going to be people flying from around the country to be on this podcast because the quality the show and the presentation is. But it's hard to run a full-time service business and do a podcast and all this stuff too. I mean, anybody my hat goes off. I look at the people that do this. It's a lot of work, and you do it too. You've got your podcast.
Nuts, man. What is it? Home Service Happy Hour is the new podcast that I started. So I've got, last time I was here, I was with Blue Sky Services doing bookkeeping, had the Bookkeeping Beer and BS podcast. We had a bunch of different businesses around the country. And I'm no longer at Blue Skies, and I'm no longer doing Bookkeeping Beer and BS. I'm still doing bookkeeping. I have a new company called Best Damn Bookkeeping, super Danified, just total Platta, badass name. It had to be
Best Damn Bookkeeping.
Best Damn Bookkeeping, and if you don't like the swears, I also own the domain for Best Dan Bookkeeping because a lot of people are like, wait, is it Best Damn or Best Dan? And I'm like, yeah. Both. You get both of them, whichever one you want. You get both of them. But I'm super passionate about the finance stuff. I'll get into a little bit about why I split off and started a new entity with it, and along with that, started a new podcast. one of the things that I appreciate, and I appreciated this about your podcast forever, and I think I told you this last time I was here, when I first started in the home service space, and I'm not alone in this. Like, if there is a person that's starting in the home service space, there's a really good chance they got started because they heard something from Keith Kalfas. And I'm no different. Like, when I first started, you're the first name I heard. Like, oh, you got to watch this video from Keith. Like, this will give you some context about what the hell you're getting into. So I remember just starting way back in the day. That was what it was. It was watching this video from Keith Kalfas talking about starting a new business and this and that. And man, it's just like that was 10 years ago, and not a whole lot's changed, but our industries have matured so much, and so many people have such higher goals to get to, myself included, right? And so part of starting the new podcast, part of starting the new business was all about just being able to go out and do it on my own and like take it to another level. One of the things I realized with podcasting, and again, back to even like watching your original content, it's cool to have a good educational podcast, but if it's boring and it doesn't deliver a message in a fun and exciting way, and it's not edgy, nobody's going to watch it. If you're just sitting here giving like super nerdy bullet points and you're boring to listen to, or you don't have a cool way to deliver it, I don't care how good the bullet points are, ain't nobody going to listen. You got to keep people's attention. It doesn't matter if you're up on stage presenting. It doesn't matter if you're a podcast host. And that was one of the things I always appreciated about you is like when you're podcasting, you're going. And once I start listening to you, you can't put it down because you're passionate, you're excited, your volume's changing, right? You've got that energy. And so part of the reason I started the home service happy hour, I mean, I'm a beer drinking nerd from Wisconsin. Like, that's just me. A mentor of mine named Keith Kalfas once told me, be yourself and turn the microphone all the way up.
And I got that from Stan Genetic to Dirt Monkey. He said, be yourself with the volume turned all the way up.
And you passed it along to me. And so I was like, man, I like home service happy hour is where it's at. It's a business entertainment podcast. It's got to be loud. It's got to be funny. And I'm going to be drinking beer every time I do an episode. And I'm going to teach some stuff and we're going to have some fun business chatter. But it's meant to replicate the convo that you would have with another business owner sitting at a bar drinking a beer. Like, that is the podcast. It's the Joe Rogan experience version of a business podcast. We should be hanging out, talking nerdy business stuff, having a beer, which is my favorite thing in the world to do. I almost brought a beer in here just because I was thirsty.
You should have.
I got this water, though. But I also started my new business, and I can get into that a little bit. I was at Blue Skies for a long time. A bunch of people still like, every time I'm like, I started my new bookkeeping business, they're like, wait, I thought Blue Skies was yours. And I'm like, kind of was, but our bookkeeping business there was like our 10th business. It was an accident. We didn't start Blue Skies to be a bookkeeping company. Blue Skies was a shitty little window cleaning business we bought back in 2011. It was Mike Dahlke was the CEO at that time, and my buddies Brian and Corey Weber were the other business partners in it. They still are. And the three of them were buying window cleaning and pressure washing and maid service companies. And like, I came in kind of fourth wheel and started buying some shares with them and eventually took over as CEO to run it. At the time, we didn't have a bookkeeping business. We didn't have a recruiting company. We had maid service companies and window cleaning companies around the country. Boom. So we had all these operating companies. The bookkeeping business was only a thing we did for ourselves. It was an internal business. We started it to take administrative employees and put them on a different payroll so they wouldn't be covered by insurance from all of our operating companies because the workers' comp and the general liability was so much more for those other businesses. So we wanted to take our admin people and move them to a different entity where we could get cheaper insurance for them. That was like the original, oh God, we should like move them over. So we started an admin company. I want to say it started in 2014. We didn't bring on an external client until 2018. 2018 was when we were like, oh, we built something that everybody else needs. We're just selfish assholes, and we're only doing it for ourselves.
Wow! So you started a bookkeeping agency internally to manage your businesses.
Yeah, we had 10 different companies across the country, and so we're like, well, we got to be able to measure all of our stuff, right? We have Hired Lead Chill now, which is I'll get to that. It's a separate business.
Oh, brilliant!
Okay. The administrative stuff behind the scenes, because we had all these different locations across the country, whether it was bookkeeping, recruiting, marketing, phone answering, like at Jill's office, we did all that internally. We had a team of administrative people, and they served all of our external businesses. I came on board fully in 2016, left my corporate gig. 2018 was when we took on our first external client. So it was this like accidental business. Even when we took on that first external client, if I remember the first two we had, one was on recruiting, one was on bookkeeping. They were both from my buddy and business partner, Mike Dalkey, doing other investments. He started a commercial window cleaning business in Nashville, Right Hand Rhino. I think he still has it. Our buddy Gabe Torres runs it. And they needed to hire some subcontractors, and they're like, hey, we hire a bunch of people at Blue Skies. Can you guys run some ads for us? And all of a sudden, like by accident, we had a recruiting business. We were starting to run ads for other people. And similarly, he was looking at a window cleaning and pressure washing business down in Florida and was going to do an investment there. And he got a hold of their QuickBooks and was like, Platta, look at these. Like, what is this business worth? And I was just like, dude, I don't know that we could tell what this business is worth because it's such a disaster, right? Because part of your bookkeeping, part of the point of doing bookkeeping is if you're going to exit or bring on a partner, you can value your business. What's it worth? And obviously it's worth more if you can have a good scorecard and tell people what's happening in it. If you have a disaster of finances, nobody really knows what it's worth. So they brought me in when Dalkey was looking at making that investment. I kind of got brought in from a Blue Skies perspective to actually like clean it up, figure out how much that business was making because they couldn't tell. And that was our first bookkeeping client, was literally a cleanup job so that Dalkey and some other people could make an investment in that business. And so fast forward, all of a sudden we had over 100 recruiting clients and 300 some bookkeeping clients. And it was an accidental business. It was never intended to be this big external facing business. It was just we helped one person, and then we helped another person, and then we kept helping people, and all of a sudden it became its own animal. And at the same time, we realized having 10 plus home service companies across the country, that was a terrible strategy. It was pretty miserable running all those locations. And so we slowly sold those, shut those down, exited those, and all of our eggs were really in the bookkeeping and the recruiting basket. And that was at the point where I was like, oh crap, I grew something, kind of my baby. Like, again, people would be like, oh yeah, Dan, he owns Blue Skies, right? But I only ever owned 13% of it because I bought into it as a part of this holding company of all the things that we had. And I kind of got to this point where I was like, oh crap, I don't even own my baby. I like built this thing, but I don't own it. And it's no detriment to the other three partners that I have. They're awesome dudes. Just in hindsight, I was like, I should have started this thing as like an isolated business of Dan doing nerdy finance stuff, which in fact, in reflection, I want to say it was like 2012 or 2013. Like Dalkey and I used to live a mile apart, and we would go to the coffee shops. To our wife's dismay, we would go to Starbucks. In Minnesota, it's Caribou. I don't know if they have the Caribou coffee here, so I say
Caribou coffee. Yeah,
I say Starbucks because everywhere else in the country they wouldn't know what Caribou is, but in the Midwest we got Caribou. There's Caribou by our house, and we'd meet there, and we'd be there for like 2 or 3 hours on a weeknight drinking coffee, which then you'd end up staying up till like 1 a.m. But we were solving all the world's problems and building spreadsheets and coming up with business models and doing acquisitions and stuff like that. And that was how I got first brought in. Was I literally was helping Mike with the books of all these businesses. So in hindsight, I'm just like, man, if I just was smart enough to realize like that was the path I should have went down right away. Like that was literally my entry into the home service space, was helping Mike get his books right and doing this multiple location strategy. And then, I CEO'd for Blue Skies for a long time and eventually came back to like, oh shit, I should be helping everybody with their bookkeeping. So long story short, I ended up exiting Blue Skies. We looked at it as a partnership, right? The four of us had to decide, does it make more sense for me to buy it or for them to buy me out? And it didn't make sense for me to buy it. I was not the best buyer. And we looked at it together where it was like, here's how much it makes sense for Dan to pay. And it does not make sense for those guys to sell it to me at that rate. So it was kind of a goofy, like, there were no hard feelings, but it was just a very mathematical discussion about, how do we exit Dan so Dan can go do his own thing? And is it better for Dan to buy the thing, or is it better for them to buy Dan out of the thing? And it just ended up being that it made more sense for everybody for them to buy me out of the thing, which it felt weird, like growing a thing to be in a $1 million+ business and then having to give up that thing. And the hardest part was actually the people side of it. We got 20 employees at Blue Skies, and that's like, they're my people. It's like the business that I built. They're my folks. I'm super loyal to them, so that was probably the hardest part. And it was a 3-month deal over the summer of trying to figure out how to do that, how to. It is definitely a goal for both Mike and I of like, how do we get this done and still like each other, right? Like dissolving partnerships would be like exiting a marriage. It doesn't end well usually. Like, how do you exit that thing and still like hug each other when you see each other after you break apart?
I would think that if you go all the way upstream, the foundation is friendship.
Mm-hmm.
True friendship is when you can go through bumpy stuff and stuff. Like my friend William, the tree guy with the beard, I always talk about him. He's in my videos. He said something to me amazing on the phone last week. He's like, bro, I think we've already been through all that stuff over the past 15 years. Like we know that because we've been through our little stuff, and now it's like. So, anyways, I was just thinking about that.
It was. I mean, like, thank God that Mike's who he is, and Brian and Corey are other two partners. Like, I had the best freaking business partners in the world. It could have been ugly, right? Like trying to exit that sort of thing, but and it was still. It was difficult. It's probably the hardest thing I've done because it's like, well, there's the math side of it, and then there's the relationship side of it, and they both tell you to do different things. Like they're at odds against each other, right? Which that's what business is. You're always you're doing trade-off decisions all the time, which is why bookkeeping is so important. We'll get to that. But so come September, we officially were able to like finalize the deal and exit me. So now that freed me up because I couldn't start a new bookkeeping company. Like legally, I couldn't start my own bookkeeping business while I still owned one. It's like I have a fiduciary responsibility to not compete with myself. And so the only opportunity was I either had to buy them or they had to buy me. There was no other option. And so thankfully they agreed that they'd be willing to buy me out and we'd figure that out. So that was like just a breath of fresh air to start over again. And obviously it's super frustrating to have to rebuild something, right? Whether it's like physically you're building, I go back to like being a kid. I have 3 kids, so I watch this happen all the time because we have a 7, a 5, and a 1. And the 1-year-old's only job in life right now is to break his sister's shit. When they build something cool, right? Like that's what little kids do. Like little siblings, their job in life is be like, oh, you built that? Sweet. I'm going to come and break it. I'm going to come and knock that over, right? And if you're that older sibling, you're just like, oh my God, like my little sibling keeps knocking all my stuff over and breaking all my stuff. And it's so frustrating. But every time that happens, and it happens to us in the work world too, where I'm a spreadsheet nerd, right? So it usually happens to me with a spreadsheet, but I'll build a sweet spreadsheet and then the computer crashes. Or you think you saved it, but it didn't save. Or whatever the case is. And like the initial reaction is like, ugh, right? Like I got to go rebuild that thing. And a business is just a bigger version of that. It's like I built this badass business. And now it's like, oh, I got to go rebuild that thing. And so that's the initial response or initial reaction that you have. And then slowly you start seeing the opportunities to rebuild it, and you start getting excited about rebuilding it because you're like, oh, I could do it this way. Oh, here's the thing where I was like, oh, it would have been hard to, once I had it built that way, I'd have to like tear down half of it to rebuild it this way. But now I get to rebuild it this way right from the start, right? So you get to build the foundation differently. You get to try different things. And so it's kind of like enlightening and exciting to have the opportunity to go do it again in a different sort of way, in a different capacity. So I'm kind of re-energized by it in a way, like, A, it's all mine, which is super fun. I've never had a business that was all mine. I've had partnerships in everything that I've done. And so to have something where it's just like, especially with me, with my personality and being beer drinking, bullshitting Dan, it's kind of fun to be like, just going to embrace that and not have to worry about the interplay of a bunch of partnership stuff with that sort of thing. So that's pretty exciting. And just the opportunity to tweak this, tweak that, fresh start. So I'm off and running with Best Damn Bookkeeping. I think we were talking about that earlier and how we got to that name. But I wanted it to be goofy and edgy. And like one of those things where you almost like offended when you hear it, but you're like, I just kind of got to know what this guy's all about. So Best Damn Bookkeeping, the logo's got a beer mug on it because if you know me, you know that I'm probably having a light beer while I'm talking to you. I'm not right now, which is surprising, but normally I am. So just making it my own thing and having a blast doing it.
Bro, I remember when I first hired you to help me go through the last. You said we can go back to this calendar year, or we can go back 2 years, or like I was like, we got to go back 2 years, bro. And so, bro, it was like ripping up floorboards, and it was like it was time consuming, and you were doing most of the work, and I was
I was in there. I was undoing and redoing and putting the hammers and the nails in.
And bro, when it was all said and done and you finally created the first profit and loss statement and then showed me how to read it and went through it all with it, like, it was a beautiful work of art. It was meticulous. I saw exactly how much money was coming in, how much money was going out, the percentage spent on cost of goods, admin, every little tiny expense for both my businesses. And I felt like, boom, proud. I felt like, bro, I've made it, like I'm successful because I knew the percentages. Like it's like a health snapshot of the business, right?
Yeah.
And so it's meticulous, and I love your business, Best Damn Bookkeeping. The first time I heard it, I'm like, that's perfect. So, and when you talk about like the ups and downs and you like the purgatories and stuff you're going to go through, because you were sharing with me before we went live here, the hard things that you go through in business and the mindset of, all right, how am I going to pull myself up by my bootstraps and get out of this? And for me, this big epiphany is that nobody cares. I think, and it's like, nobody cares, work harder, like this macho man bullshit. I don't mean that. I'm like serious. Nobody cares if something's hard. So that the hard things that you pull yourself out of and then you step on become foundations of your success. They become stepping stones.
Yep. You
solidify them through the experience when something breaks down and goes wrong. It's like Brian Tracy said, when the car breaks down and everything is falling apart in your life, the person that comes out of you then, that's who you are. And that's what makes people. So teach us, Dan. What's up, bro? You're awesome.
As you're saying that, Sean Day, who runs Hire Lead Chill, shout out. Well, we're gonna talk probably tomorrow about the group interview process and some things we help people with at Hire Lead Chill to get that squared away. But Sean Day,
real quick, he said tomorrow. I like that. A quick segue. Look out for that. If we don't, depending on how long this podcast is, we might be doing 2. So make sure you get on my email list. Go to the Untrapped podcast. How can somebody get on my email list for the podcast?
We got all kinds of stuff to talk about. They better get on every automated sequence that they can possibly follow.
Here, this will get you on my email list real quick. We have a free PDF download. It's actually a free ebook guide we created. It's the 4 steps to training employees, a step-by-step guide, and keithkelfis.com/4 steps. It's not FOUR, it's just the number 4. keithkelfis.com/4 steps. You'll get the free PDF download of how to train employees to get them to actually perform. We could get a train like anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. We can teach an employee how to do something, and then I can leave the job site and they won't screw it up. So get that, and that'll get you on my email list, so that way when we put out these podcasts, you'll get notified when we put out a new show.
Go grab that, and then tomorrow when I'm talking about Hire Lead Chill and helping people get employees, and then how to like interview them to find the right people, that's all stuff you got to do right before you implement your knowledge there in that course.
That's perfect. And hire, lead, chill. So
it's the 3 steps. It's the 3 steps to building your business. First, you got to hire them. Then you got to lead them, and then you got to build a chill culture so they don't want to leave it. Because people will leave to go, like they'll come for more money, right? It's just like back when you were dating, right? You're at the bar, and all you get is the looks. You're just purely going by looks because you don't know what they're like, right? The only thing you have is the external. Which is why everybody tries to go look real good when they're going out, right? Back in the single days.
I met my wife in a karaoke bar, and I was like, oh, my God. I said to my friend, I go, who the hell is that, bro?
Yeah. But it was at the time, it was just visual, right? That's all you got. That's all you have to go by, right? Applicants are the same way. That's all they have to go by is how sexy you are. That's all they have. They don't know what your culture is. They don't know what you're all about. They just know how sexy your job ad was. You're just a girl in the bar or a dude in the bar, depending on which side of that table you're on. So we were talking about that earlier. I'm going to get into the group interview process on a different little segment that we do here. But I think it's just real important that the reason why we're hire, lead, and chill is like you can hire all the people you want, but if you are a shitty leader, you're done. They're not going to stay, right? You might be sexy in the bar, but if you suck as a leader and a CEO, they're not going to stay. It doesn't matter how good you are at hiring people. If you're a bad leader, they're not going to stay. If you're great at hiring people and you're a good leader, but you have a shitty culture, people will leave that too, right? They'll come for the money and the sex appeal, but you need to lead them and you need to build a company that when you're not there, every vibe about you, every core value, every being that you've implanted in that company is still there, that culture exists and exists when you're not there. Because as you continue to grow the business, you might be a great leader, but you're not interacting with the technicians anymore. At some point, you interact with the leadership team, and that's it. And if your leadership team sucks at being leaders, your business is broken, right? You can't chill. You have a shitty culture. So you got to hire them, lead them, and then you got to build a chill culture where people want to stay because they really enjoy being there. And it's no longer because of you. It's because of everything you've built, right? The who, not the how that we were talking about earlier. So anyway, I digress. We'll get to that on a separate episode. But that was why we called it hire, lead, chill. It's really the three segments to scale your business. You got to be great at hiring them, but it doesn't stop there. Then you got to be really good at leading them, and then you got to be good at leading leaders. Eventually, like you're not the one leading the people. You're the one leading the leadership team, and they got to be good at leading people. You got to build that culture, which that ties into the purgatories we're going to talk about, because the purgatories also happen at each phase where you like jump from one of those things to the other thing. That's where your business breaks.
So I've heard of cash flow purgatory, and now you're talking about the purgatories of scaling.
Yeah, which go along with the cash flow purgatories because they all happen at the same time. They all go together.
Bro.
We'll get into it. But you were talking about when I first engaged on the bookkeeping stuff with you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you back there because bookkeeping gets misconstrued a whole lot. So I'm gonna just turn into total Dan nerd here and talk quickly about what the fuck is the point of book. Can I swear on your podcast? It's too late.
Uh-huh.
Beep it out. But like, what is the point of bookkeeping? It sounds like such a stupid ass term. It's super boring. It's nerdy accounting stuff. It's just a thing you got to do for your CPA, blah, 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 blah. But when you got that scorecard, it's no different than, imagine playing a football or basketball game and you don't know if you're winning or losing. Maybe the ref knows, the tax person knows, but what if you don't know? That's a weird game to play. If you're in the middle of a basketball game and it's halftime and you're like, Coach, how we doing? Like, I don't know, man. Just keep playing hard, Keith. Just keep playing hard. Like, could you imagine playing sports without a scoreboard?
And he's not talking about a whole big complex thing. He's just talking about a simple scoreboard.
Just a scoreboard. What's the score? Like in your business, the score is your financial statements. That's the score. And you're playing a math game. If you own a business, if you're running a business, you are playing a math game. That's what you signed up for, which sucks for some of us because, I mean, for a lot of us, like, If somebody would ask you, like, you a math person, most of us would be like, no, man, I hate math, right? For a lot of us. That's fine. That's totally fine. But regardless of whether we love math or don't love math, our business is legit a math game. That's all it is. It's a series of decisions that we make, and our business is only as good as the decisions that we make. And whether we like it or not, every single decision we make is a math decision. I don't care if you're looking at buying a piece of equipment, hiring an employee, taking that employee to lunch, or training that employee, or spending money on marketing, or spending money on recruiting, or looking at renting an office. Every single one of those things I just said is a math decision. Every single one of those things needs to return you more money than it costs you, or you go out of business. That's it. That's all business is. It's just a bunch of math decisions over and over and over again. And so how the hell are you going to play that game if you don't know what the score is? You got to know what the hell the score is, because every decision that you make is based on that score, right? If it's the fourth quarter of a ball game, every decision you make about who's going to play, what play are we going to run, are we going to hold on to the ball, or are we going to take it to the hoop? Are we going to foul, or are we going to play back, like kind of a prevent defense? Every decision you make is based on what the score is. So how the hell are you going to run a business and not know what the score is? You got to know. And bookkeeping falls into this weird, bookkeeping is the scoreboard, but it falls into this weird space where it's not super understood. It kind of seems, and these two things are wrong, but it kind of seems like something that our office admin person would do, or maybe like, I like to say it's like falls into mother-in-law work, which is accounts receivable, collecting money from your clients, accounts payable, paying your bills, payroll if you have employees, making sure they get paid. Like, is that bookkeeping? No, it's not. But it kind of sounds like accounting stuff. Like, it has the word account in it, so it must be accounting, which accounting is bookkeeping, right? Wrong. Like, all of that stuff, we can hire an admin to do, right? Can you send your client an invoice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you know how to make a journal entry for when you trade in a vehicle?
Yes.
Do you really?
Yes.
Wow. Look at you go.
But that's just
I want to make you do it later to see if you actually know.
All right, we'll log into QuickBooks and do it.
But that's the thing. It's like your office person can oftentimes send an invoice, pay a bill, enter payroll information, how many hours did this person work, whatever. But that doesn't mean they can organize a profit and loss. That doesn't mean they can look at a balance sheet and go like, hey, we got something in the wrong spot, or we got this much invested here and it's not paying off, right? So bookkeeping is a little more accounting intense than just paying bills and collecting on your bills. It's more organization. It's how do you build the scorecard, right? Different than the office administrative stuff. The other spectrum is people think, oh, bookkeeping is something my CPA would do. They're the ones that need to pay the taxes, and bookkeeping is a tax thing, right? Wrong. It's not a tax thing. You can do your taxes with a box of bank statements bank statements and like a box full of receipts. You don't need QuickBooks and an organized P&L to pay your taxes. You can do that a lot of different ways. There's plenty of CPAs out there.
That's how I used to do it. I would just download all 12 months of all my bank statements.
Here you go.
Then I did it on paper first, and I'm like, screw this. Then I download them all digitally, and then I put them on a Google Drive folder in the cloud.
Yeah.
So every year I have 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, my taxes. So everything related to the taxes and everything for that year gets uploaded to the cloud there.
Yep.
And then I just share the link with my accountant. Boom, he's got all the bank account statements. He's got everything.
Yep. And he can do his job. He can do the taxes, but he can't tell you what the score is.
Nope.
He can tell you what you owe the IRS, but the game's over. By the time you get there, that game's over.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you know how you did all along? You might have made different decisions that whole way along, right? Like the season's not over, but the game is over. If a game is a year long and the season is however long you're in business for, like that game's already over. You might change by the next game, but maybe there was something you could have done differently to win that game before the season was over. So where bookkeeping comes into play is in between that office person and them collecting bills and paying payroll and the tax person at the end of the year getting the IRS settled up for how well you played that game. That's their job. But in between, the bookkeeper is the thing giving you the scoreboard, telling you, are you winning? Are you losing? And here's what the strategy should be. A good bookkeeper is also like a coach. They're your finance person. They can tell you, here's what the scoreboard says, and they can tell you based on the situation, maybe you're not winning here, maybe you're winning over here. Here's some things we could do differently to maybe win this game. That's what your bookkeeper should be doing. So bookkeeping in between is all about organizing your stuff, making sure it's in the right spot, making sure you know what the percentages are, and giving you some analysis that says, here's where you're winning and here's where you're losing on this scoreboard. Because the tax person's not going to do that for you. The tax person probably doesn't understand how the hell you even make money. They don't understand your business. They understand how to take the numbers from your scoreboard and put them into their software to make sure the IRS gets paid correctly. This isn't all CPAs. This is a generalization, right? But when I hear somebody say like, oh yeah, my CPA does their books, my usual response is, do they do them for you or do they do them for themselves? Because usually when a CPA is doing your bookkeeping, they're not asking you questions every week about what's going on. They're not sending you reports every month to tell you how you're doing. They ask you questions maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, and their questions are only to help them organize them in a way that they can put it into their software. They're charging you, right? They sure as hell are charging you this whole time, but they're doing your bookkeeping for themselves. They're organizing it to put into their software so that come tax time, their life is easier. They're not organizing it in a way to say, hey, Keith, here's how you're performing. Here's how you're doing. Here's some things you should do more of. Here's how you should do less of, because they don't usually understand your business model. They understand some things you can do for tax savings, maybe. The good ones can. But they're generally organizing it to put into their tax software. So they're charging you. You're paying them for them to do the bookkeeping in a way that benefits them. Makes their life easier. So they're literally like sending you an invoice to make their lives easier, which I think is just hilarious. They're not doing the bookkeeping for you. They're doing it for themselves.
They're not saying, hey, last month this was your cost of labor and this is how much you paid in insurance. And they're like, so in percentage.
Yeah, and your marketing was 10%, but historically it's been 15. And was that strategic? Was it, did you get a good deal? Is it just a cash flow thing? Like, they're not looking at that. It's just all going into a category for where it goes into their tax software. And I'm generalizing, right? There's some really good CPAs out there. Mm-hmm. There's some really, really bad ones. So it's just my caution is if you're using a CPA and they're doing your books, just make sure they're doing them for you. Because generally they're charging you to do your books, but they're doing them for themselves. They're doing them to make their life easier, not your life easier.
7 minutes ago, you asked me if I could make a journal entry for
trading in a vehicle.
And I said yes. But I made a mistake, and it's bugging me now. My bookkeeper that you assigned to me, I went through because I had an Amazon credit card because I get the points, and it's the only card I do this on that I was mixing personal purchases with that, so I had to go make a special itemized spreadsheet for him to categorize which one of those were business purchases so we could just fix it. Not even a big deal. And then when you said journal entry, my head went right to that, and I said yes. But I've never gone on QuickBooks and made a journal entry for what you just said. I know I could do this shit, but so I basically told like a white lie and didn't even need to, and it was bugging me, so I had to fess up. Because your whole point was like, you can do this. Can you do this? Yes. Can you do this? No. And you were going to say, that's what a bookkeeper or a good bookkeeper knows how to do. Is those things that are so vital to your business.
This is not an insult to you at all, Keith. I promise you couldn't make that journal entry. Just because it's stupid accounting stuff. It's not that you're not capable of learning it. I could teach it to you before we left here today. We could have a couple beers while we're doing it. You're capable of learning it, but even if I showed it to you, you'd be like, get the hell out of here. You'd look at it and you'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. And I'd be like, yeah, it doesn't. It's accounting. It's like its own language, right? There's these professions that have stupid ass languages built just for themselves, created by people that I'm pretty sure only created them the way they did so that nobody else could understand it. It's like a job security thing. Lawyers are the worst. They talk in words where you're just like, just tell me what you're actually saying. Every time I read a legal document, I'm like, can't you just like write it in words that make sense? Why do you got to write it in all this nonsense? And then I say that, or I feel that, and I'm like, oh yeah, but I do accounting. I'm one step below them and talking in a totally different language of debits and credits and P&Ls and balance sheets and saying words that other people are like, dude, can't you just like talk in words that a normal human would understand? So lawyers are the worst. I think accountants are the second worst at just speaking over people's heads, saying shit that they don't understand. So yes, you could learn that journal entry. But if I put it in front of you right now and said, hey, Keith, here's the data you need to make this journal entry, you'd be like, this is bullshit, Dan. But that's fine, because knowing how to do that should not be a thing you're concerned about.
No.
You should not. It's not going to. You need to.
Not how, bro.
Like how. When did you play sports growing up at all?
I dabbled in sports.
Did you ever look at
basketball and soccer?
Yeah. Did you ever look at a scoreboard?
No.
Bullshit. I bet there was a scoreboard on the wall that said how many points the home team had, how many points the away team had, how many timeouts or something like that. Right?
Never. No, I was never. That's funny.
don't know. I just feel like there had to at least somebody had to be like flipping a thing.
No, we played football and we were kids in the projects.
Oh, okay.
But then when it came time to actually be on a sports team, I just wanted to go home and play Dragon Warrior and video games.
I got you. Well, those have scoreboards too, right? Like when you play a video game, there's a score.
Definitely. Like I loved, what was the NBA Jam?
Oh, dude. He's heating up.
Oh, my God. I play that all the time.
So there was a scoreboard there.
That was one of my favorite games.
But every time you're looking at a scoreboard, your job as the business owner is like, what's the score? That's what you should be thinking as a business owner. Not how the hell do they use the electrons behind the scoreboard and the electrodes to make the thing light up, right? Like how the scoreboard works is the bookkeeper's job. What the hell the score is the business owner's job. You don't need to know how to make a journal entry when you trade in a vehicle. That's not the business owner's job. The business owner's job is to know what my cash flow is, what my investments in these different things are, and what decision I need to make as a result of that based on the score. You don't need to know how the damn scoreboard works. It helps to know a little bit about why it goes here, why it goes there, and what it all means, but you need to know how to read the scoreboard so you can make decisions with it. That's what you need to know as a business owner.
Bro. So, I read a lot of Kiyosaki books. He talks about trusting the bookkeeper, because some people think like, well, I'm going to trust a bookkeeper with all my stuff. Well, yeah. And then once you got your bookkeeper, just like if you trust, I don't know, somebody to work in your business, then it becomes, I'm so glad this person's on my team. What's your whole thing on that? If somebody's like, well, I want to hire a bookkeeper, but I don't know, like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's no different than anybody else that you'd hire, right? You can't just blindly hire somebody and be like, I've heard Brandon Vaughn say this, and I don't know exactly where he got it from, but I don't think it's an original quote, but you can't delegate through abdication. You can't just be like, all right, here you go. Peace out. Because they're not going to be able to read your mind, right? And they might suck. So anytime you hire somebody for anything, you have to have systems and processes to verify, right? Trust, yes. Verify, hell yes. You still need to make sure they know what they're doing and that they're able to do what they said they were going to do, right? I don't care if that's a technician, an office manager, a bookkeeper, a CPA. You can't just like blindly hire somebody and be like, your problem now. Tell me how we're doing, right? If you totally check out on it, you're going to get blindsided by it. And frankly, like as a nerdy bookkeeper, I can't do a good job for you if you totally check out on it because I can't read your mind. I don't know everything that you're up to. I don't know when you spend money at Amazon and it's personal. All I see is that it's Amazon. So I got to bug you about it. So we got to it's a communication thing, right? I got to bug you about what was this? What was that? Is it always this? Is it always that? Should I ask you about it every time? It's a relationship, right? It's a two-way street. It's a communication thing. So I think the number one thing to look for, and any finance person, I don't care if this is a bookkeeper, a CPA, your office manager, whoever it is, can they communicate? Do they communicate regularly? One of the things that I'm super passionate about in our bookkeeping, and I built it this way at Blue Skies, and I'm building this the exact same way at Best Damn Bookkeeping, is it has to be weekly.
Bro, you want a pillow behind your back?
Yeah, I got a little one here. I got a little lumbar support.
With that?
I mean, I'll stack them.
Stack them.
But
is that better?
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, he's chilling.
I got my Responsibid socks on. Shout out Kurt Kempton.
Kurt Kempton, Responsibid.
Yeah, dude, Kurt is my official sock sponsor. I got so many pairs of Responsibid socks. They're so good.
Dude, I should give him a shout out real quick. Go to keithkelfis.com/resources if you need an awesome software to plug into the front of your website that'll automate the bidding. Dude.
And if you want some sweet socks, look at these. Making Waves. This was from ResponsiCon a couple of years ago. Making Waves. But again, anytime you're like hiring a finance person, any role for your business, you can't just turn it over blindly, right? You have to know enough about how to read the scoreboard. You're playing a math game. If you're a business owner, you're playing a math game, you can't just totally check out on it. And for your bookkeeper to do a great job, communication's super important. So for what we did at Blue Skies, what I'm doing at Best Damn Bookkeeping is it has to be weekly. checking in with every single client every single week, even if it's just to say, hey, Keith, everything looks good. You're good to go. But I know that if I have a question for you about what happened this past week, and I say, hey, Keith, what was that Amazon? You'll be able to say, oh, that one was personal. Put it down as a distribution. Or, oh, that was supplies. But if that was 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, there's no way in hell you remember what that $96.37 was. There's no way. You can't remember. If it happened this last week, there's a good chance you remember. If it was before that,
I just go look at my Amazon and I can see all the purchases with the pictures attached.
You could, but it'd be way easier if you didn't even have to go look, right? If it was just like, yep, that was this, done. Versus all of a sudden, if we wait a month, now I have a list of 20 things for you. You're going to spend a half hour of your time going and getting answers for me.
My bookkeeper did. I was at the Equip Expo in Louisville, Kentucky when I was on the road. He messaged me and I couldn't get back to him. He's got 2 questions about 2 transactions and what they were because they're the numbers, and I just got to go look.
Boom.
Done.
But if it's a month old, it's 20 questions. And you're not going to remember. It's going to take you 20, 30, 40 minutes of you going to look at your Amazon to give them an answer, right? If it's weekly, answers are quick. Communication's fast. Mm-hmm. Results are fast. By the time you get more than a week old, like, you don't remember. You got to go look. And then that list gets a lot bigger. Mm-hmm. And then you answer 15 to the 20. The other 5 are still hanging out there because you're like, oh, God, I need this documentation from the thing. So super, super important to do it every single week. And then the result at the end of the month, you have to get that scoreboard fast enough that you can actually do something with it. Because if I waited till the end of the year to give you 12 scoreboards, you've missed the opportunity to change what you're doing and make decisions along the way. So we did it at Blue Skies, and I'm doing it the same way in the new business, which is you need to get the end of the month report by the 10th of the following month. That's a week to get the transactions in and a couple days to get the questions answered, reconciliations done, make sure everything ties out. Then you need to get that scoreboard because you have decisions to make. You're running a math-based game. You got to be able to look at the scoreboard, make decisions, ask questions, right? Because if you don't open that P&L report and say, does this make sense or does this not make sense? Maybe I put something in the wrong spot. Maybe I thought your Amazon was this because every other time we've called it tools, but you just spent $1,000 and it was on a new computer that you bought off Amazon or something, right? And so if you don't look at the scoreboard, who's going to look at it, right? It's your scoreboard. And if it's 2 months old, you're not going to scrutinize it. But if it just happened this month, you're going to be like, man, why is my office supply so high? Or why is my COGS, tools and equipment, so high, right? And
cost of goods sold.
Yeah, that's COGS. Yeah, I just jumped the gun on that one, didn't I? But I mean, like, yeah, you got to look at it. You got to look at your scoreboard. You got to know what it's saying. And it's got to be timely enough that it's relevant to you as you're running your business. So it's kind of a speed and accuracy thing, which in a funny way, that's no different than if you're cleaning windows. That's no different than if you're mowing lawns, if you're doing a landscaping project. Every employee I've ever hired in any of our businesses, I tell them 2 things. I think it's 2 things. I'll say it out loud and then we'll decide if it's actually 2 things. This is what I tell them. Say, I need you to do this. You need to be really good. You can never sacrifice quality, right? You have to do a good job. If you do a bad job cleaning windows, we're going to get a call. If you do a bad job mowing lawns, we're going to get a call. If you do a bad job bookkeeping, we're going to get a call. And you have to do it really fast. If you do a slow job cleaning windows, we lose money. If you do a slow job mowing lawns, we lose money. If you do a slow job bookkeeping, we lose money. I never charged you more if it took us longer to do the bookkeeping, did I? Your price was always the same every single month. If it took us longer to do the bookkeeping, the business ate the cost. Mm-hmm. And so I can't have a bookkeeper that's an amazing bookkeeper and takes 20 hours a month to do your books, or I'm going to go out of business. And the same exists for every single business that any of us, anybody listening to this podcast, any business that they have. I don't care if they're a fucking shoe shiner, Keith. If they are in business, running a business, they need to be really good and really fast, and you can't sacrifice one for the other. Because if you're really good and you're really slow, you're out of business. And if you're really fast and your quality sucks, you're out of business. right? Your best employees and you have to be both at the same time. You have to be really good and really fast, which is why bookkeeping is so important to do every single week and really quick turnaround at the end of the month, because you have to be really good and you have to be really fast, because the scoreboard ain't waiting for you, man. The world keeps going. The customers need their stuff done. Your employees need paychecks, and you got decisions to make. You got to be good. You got to be fast. I'm talking Ricky Bobby. We're talking about Ricky Bobby.
Bro. It's so nice to have you on the show, man. I don't even have to say shit. I can just...
I was going to say, that's the danger of having me on the show, is we might be 2 hours in by now. I don't even know what time it is. We'll just keep going.
52 minutes, bro. You know, I've been practicing because I make YouTube videos. Some of you guys listening make YouTube videos. I'm always the one doing all the talking, and it's nice to relax. And so my ego wants to chime in and start saying stuff. And I say, I've grown past that. Just relax. Let Dan talk. Because if I start talking, I might, you might have, the prime is pumping the prime, like the well is spring. Like you might be coming out with some really good gold. Just let you flow, bro.
I can only imagine how much of a pain in the ass I am as a guest, in terms of you might have like questions you want to ask, but since I find this when I host podcasts and my guest is another podcast host, you have to like give them more runway, because they're just inclined to act like a show host. They'll just go.
Yeah, sometimes they'll forget that you're interviewing them. And they think they're interviewing you.
Or you start asking them questions, and they start asking you questions back, and you're like, I just forgot who's hosting this show. I don't even know anymore. Like, it's just a host off.
Yeah.
But no, you know me, I'll keep going.
When I first started my window cleaning business, and I was being such a perfectionist that I couldn't sleep at night, bro. Because windows, you can see. Like we do, I was doing snow plowing and window cleaning in the winter. Mm-hmm. And I dropped the lawn care and picked up window cleaning instead. We still do tons of landscaping. But with the window cleaning, you can see any imperfection on the glass. And if you can't see it, just move to a different angle and you can see it.
Yeah, it's there. So, especially if it's cloudy out. It's there. You ain't looking from the right angle yet.
So I have tons of videos on the Window Cleaning Blueprint YouTube channel, where I talk about crazy stuff like this, funny, comical stuff too. One funny video I talk about perfectionists. So the guys have already went into the truck or the van, your employees, you're just collecting the check, and then they're like, wait a second, I saw a little speck here. Well, instead of just getting that little speck and then bouncing her, I tell my guys, go around with microfibers, do whatever you got to do, and keep going. Don't stop until I walk out of that house with a check and a smile. Just keep making it perfect, so the customers know we worked by the sweat of our brow. We did a great job. Like it's that feeling the customer gets. Okay, you guys are good.
It's the perception that you worked until the last minute and weren't just hanging out.
100%, bro. But sometimes when the customers are so picky, you can't make them happy. I have this. It's a funny video, bro. I said the guys that have already gone and sat in the truck because you thought you were done, and then now you're in anxiety because they're on the clock, and the customer's like, what about this spec? And there's not enough time to go tell them to call them back in, so you just get it real quick, and then there's another. And then, but I said sometimes I would say like I would purposely start picking out little imperfections just to add to it. To see how far, oh yeah, Mr. Customer, you're not going to show me. I'm going to show you.
Here's another one. I don't know if you noticed this one, but I can see that one.
Yeah, do you see that one? I said, and then the grandma gets up and goes, and that one too, and that one there, and there. And I say, no more profit for me. Like that. And I say, come on, guys, get out of the truck. Come on back in. And the customer, after you make it perfect, no, it's good. No, we're going to make your windows shiny. And I was like, we'll stay for an extra 45 minutes. Like psychopaths make it in a very friendly way, but like just to prove a point. Yeah. I don't even care about money. I'm going to make your like, and it's like this sadistic thing I was going through because I felt like I couldn't win, bro. But so now we have pre-trip inspection. We make sure I point out little imperfections. I explain it to the customer over the phone and let them know, hey, we're doing an initial, like a basic cleaning. If it like, I'm going on too much about this.
But I think this exists in any business.
Oh, yeah, the speed of it. So I found this guy on YouTube at that time. He said, I would not do this. But he was like, and he was an older guy, and he was like one of the first guys to make window cleaning videos back in the day. He says to the customer, listen, I'm like the McDonald's of window cleaning, okay? I charge you a super fair price. I get in out, your windows look 100 times better than they did. I'm just not going to go out of my way to be climbing over a washer and dryer
Yeah.
and to get
You ordered a Big Mac. I'm not giving you a steak.
exactly, bro. And I climbed up on some dude's dryer in a beautiful house, and my knee right on a soft spot put a big dent in the dryer. Then I had to go get tools and take the dryer apart to pop the dent out and put the dryer back. And there was still a little bit of, and I was about to buy the dude a whole new dryer. And he's like, no, it's fine. But from an angle, you could see a little bit of a dent from my knee and I was panicking and shit. And then he never called us back. And it was probably just because maybe his wife, and I'm like, are you sure your wife is going to be cool with this, bro?
Yeah.
And it's like the stuff that you go through in a business. So you got to be really, really, really good, but you got to be really, really, really fast at the same time.
Yep.
What is good and what is fast, different conversation for a different time. But
that I feel like it's just expectation setting, right? You can't set an expectation that you can't live up to. And Debbie Sardone, who's a good friend of mine, and she's a maid service coach, like the queen of maid services.
I think I just saw her at Joshua Latimer's War Plan Studios.
Yep. I believe she was there.
They were on some Zoom thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
She is.
That lady's pretty sharp, man.
She's so good. She's so good. But one of the things I saw her present one time, and she was talking about making a brand promise that you can keep. And her brand promise for her maid service business had nothing to do with quality. Nothing. Her brand promise was she has a not-for-profit called Cleaning for a Reason, and they clean for cancer patients. And that was their promise, is we're going to clean so many houses for cancer patients.
Wow.
Like, are they going to clean, if you hire them as a maid service, are they going to clean your house? Sure. Are they going to try to do a great job? Yep. Are they going to make mistakes? Yep. Right? Like, you're hiring a maid service that's a growing business. They're going to screw some stuff up. That their brand promise had nothing to do with we're going to be the best cleaners, we're going to be the fastest cleaners, we're going to do, whatever promise you could make about quality. They made none of it. That wasn't their promise. Their promise was we clean for cancer patients. Like, they built a brand based on that. And I was like, that's freaking awesome. I never thought about it that way. But it's an expectation setting thing. Now, internally, you still need people to do a really good job, and you still need them to do it really fast, and they have to do both, right? And that's any role in your company. They have to be able to do both. I don't care if it's a salesperson, right? If a salesperson's a great salesperson, but they only get to 2 quotes a day, what good are they, right? Unless they're selling $10,000 jobs every time you turn around, like, they're probably not selling ridiculously high jobs. They're probably selling the same average ticket, and if they're only doing 2 instead of the 8 that they're supposed to be doing, it doesn't matter what their close rate is. They're not fast enough, right? So it's like, you got to be able to do both. And the best employees, actually, in my experience, the best employees usually can do both. They are really good, and they're just that good that they can also do it really fast.
Dude, I got this guy who works for me, of all things. He's motivated by money. He doesn't care about, man, you did such a good job or any of that shit. It's, bro, I baked in a $200 bonus for you on this job because I know that this doing the weed, or even a $400 or $500 bonus because I know that you hate doing the weed fabric. I hate doing the shit. I can do it just like, actually, I can't do it as good as he can. And he's like, sweet. And dude, he'll just start ripping out roots and boom, 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 and weed fabric and pins and like the money, it just pays for itself.
Yep.
Because he does it so much faster at super high quality. So but we have a conversation beforehand. It's like, it's got to look super sweet, just like you did the last one, even though you don't want to do it. It was like the money's the motivator. It's funny. But that's funny. You say you build in the expectations and the culture ahead of time.
You have to. But with both the employee and with the customer, right?
With the customer.
Because if the customer doesn't have a good expectation, then you're going to be chasing your tail the whole time on that relationship. If they think something different is going to happen, right? If they think they're going to get a steak, that Sean Day, who runs Higher Lead Chill, when he first started working for us back in the Blue Skies days, he ran all of our maid service businesses. What an unfair job. I'm so sorry that I put him through that. It's the worst thing I've ever done to a human being. But he ran all of our maid service businesses, and that of all industries, like, you're in people's houses touching their stuff, right? It's like as personal of a thing as you can get. It's like, I would say that's more personal than doing business owners bookkeeping. Because at least most business owners are like, I never go into my QuickBooks. I have no idea what condition it's in. Like, every person that hires a home cleaner knows exactly what condition their home is in, right? And you're going in and touching all their stuff and cleaning it and organizing it and all that stuff. And one of the biggest challenges you'd have, kind of like the example you gave on the window cleaning, is like, as a human, if you're passionate about your thing, like, it's really hard not to go above and beyond and do free shit for people. Really hard not to. As the business owner, I absolutely reserve the right to do that, but I can't scale a business with a bunch of employees that do that, because my sales team, or me if I'm the salesperson, I'm selling a Big Mac, right? And if Mrs. Jones calls and I say, Mrs. Jones, we're selling Big Macs here, and here's how we make a Big Mac, and it's got this and it's got that, and this is what it's going to look like, and then this cleaner goes in and cleans this way, or this bookkeeper goes in and does it this way, and they deliver a steak, all Mrs. Jones is going to think is, oh, I can pay $6 for a steak.
Oh, my.
Right? I pay $6 and I get this steak. And so then if you...
Bro, I was delivering filet mignon steaks for pennies.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the next person you send cannot deliver a filet mignon steak, does exactly what you told Mrs. Jones you would do. Does exactly a Big Mac. Which is what which is what Mrs. Jones is paying you for.
I raised my prices dramatically and lowered my quality just a little bit. Lost all my beginning clients. It took me first 2 years to build. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple stuck around.
But their expectation was, I get a steak from Keith and I'm paying for a Big Mac. You were giving them a steak.
I was the talk of the town, bro, in a good way.
I bet they loved it, right?
They loved it, bro.
Yeah. Who wouldn't? Until you started giving them what they ordered, right? They ordered a Big Mac. You told them you were going to give them a Big Mac. You just gave them more. So their expectation was one thing, and
I'm going to get sick thinking about it.
You changed their expectation, and then the minute you started delivering what they were paying for and what you originally promised them, like, they're disappointed. So you can't scale a business by delivering a steak when you promise a Big Mac. Like, kudos to the dude you were talking about that was like, I'm the McDonald's of this service. Like, I'm fast, I'm efficient, you get exactly what you paid for, but I ain't crawling over that thing to clean that window. This ain't a steak. This is a Big Mac. And if you want a steak, go hire.
You can actually just use an extension pole. Here's something I learned from Bobby Walker, but I use it on the inside. So when they power wash, like, someone's front porch, they'll take a picture of all the patio furniture and how everything was all set up, move it to the side, power wash it, look at the picture, put it back.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
Yeah.
I have customers inside of the house. There's the kitchen sink, and they have this huge, like, beautiful granite in a kitchen window, and they have all the pictures of, like, the family and, like, the little statue of Jesus and all these things, man. And I used to just move it all, and I'm like, oh, shoot. So now my customer comes. It's my customer's wife, and I'm taking a picture of all their family pictures.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's not what you think.
No, I'm just taking a picture of this so I remember exactly where it goes, because I want to be respectful and honorable, right? Boom. And then I was able to put it all back perfect. And he's like, I didn't even care if you put it back perfectly. You do such a good job, you know. But it was like.
But did you charge her for that?
Yes, I do charge. I raise my prices all the time. And so, like, when we power wash our front or back porch, we take a picture of it and put everything back how it was, you know.
Yeah.
I
dig it. We should talk about since you switched your financial day to be Friday finances, which I'm a huge fan of alliteration, and I didn't realize that we were walking earlier, and you're like, hey, Saturday, I used to rave about doing Saturday finances. Now I do Friday finances, and now not only does the work get done, but it also sounds better. I've got Platta's 5 finance fundamentals. So I'm not trying to, like, one up you on the F thing, because I'll F our way right on out of here.